there isn't a major big pivot that we did, right? Like we didn't go into this thinking that we're going to build prediction markets and all of a sudden we're now doing Uber on chain, you know? like we very much had all these little mini pivots of, okay, we want to go this product direction. Well, actually, JK, we need to do this first versus that. So I think the unglamorized mini pivots that happen pretty much in like a weekly basis within the founder's journey are a lot of the times more realistic than what's the bigger pivot that's always talked about.
Hey everyone, welcome to Talking Tokens, a podcast focused on interviewing the best crypto founders, market players, and up-and-coming startups that are changing the industry every single Tuesday and Thursday. I'm Jacqueline Melinek, your award-nominated host and former senior crypto reporter turned entrepreneur, and I'm excited to be here with you all. Now, let's get into it. Today, we are recording this episode from Buenos Aires during the Avalanche Summit in Latin America. I'm joined here with the director of Codebase at Ava Labs, Michael Martin, as well as the co-founders of Inertia, Marc, Kainoa, and Anish. I'm excited to be here with them. And I think the first question I really want to ask is, how did you even get into this space? Because I feel like everyone has such interesting origin stories. So feel free to kick it off with the co-founders and we'll go to Michael.
Cool. Yeah. So keeping it quick, there was a Minecraft server I played on and they accepted cryptocurrency as payments. And I was like, this is like, oh God, I was like middle school or something. So I go to my dad, I'm like, Dad, let's buy this internet magic money. And he's like, no, like, what the fuck is Bitcoin? Like, that's stupid, you know? So he thought I was getting into a scam. And he completely regrets that now. But it kind of sparked a little bit of an interest. And then coming into high school, I started learning more in economics, started trading stocks, crypto, traded all throughout the first bull run, lost my total of $1,000, which I thought was, you know, the whole world's worth of money back then, right. Being young and all, still young. But, and then when I went into college, I actually ended up meeting these two. So I, refounded blockchain at UCI, our collegiate blockchain organization. Marc actually ended up leading our research team and Kainoa was our director of technology. And we kind of just met there and I'll let you guys kind of carry the story further.
Definitely. Yeah. I actually got into crypto because like literally the first week I got into college, my roommate was like, hey, do you know about this thing called blockchain? I'm like, I've maybe heard of it. And he's like begging me to talk to Anish. I'm like, okay. And then just the conversation immediately sparked and you convinced me to join in. We refounded the club. I think I was like one of the first signing members on and things just went from there. Really got the ball rolling with my interest. And now I'm here.
Yeah. I guess my story in crypto really started when, you know, my family immigrated to the United States in 2007, right before the recession happened. And, you know, I would hear a lot about my parents arguing about international wiring fees because they would send money back to my grandma. I got chronically online. It was a really small town. It was like 10,000 people and below. And I love that place, but I, you know, went on YouTube and a bunch of forums. I found out what Bitcoin was in 2012. I was really young. I was 12. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I went to Walmart. I got gift cards. I traded in for Bitcoin. I was like, hey, grandma, here's this thing. Can you get on a computer? And she was like, what's a computer? So I lost those keys, sadly, but I kept looking at the space all throughout high school. And in college, yeah, I met Anish, you know, my sophomore year after working in startups my freshman year. And we hit it off. We spoke for like 2 hours.
Dude, the entire room is like completely empty. Just standing in a little corner, just yapping away. Like, I remember like the janitor like opening, just peeking in briefly and like seeing just two of us like just standing there just talking.
Weird's going on here.
And yeah, we you know, we all had a lot of fun at a bunch of ETH Denvers together, hackathons together.
Built a bunch of little projects here and there.
Yeah. And, you know, I graduated last year and I was like, hey, Anish, like, I'm really bored now. Let's go do something. And, you know, we spun up a little prop trading firm and eventually found ourselves in prediction markets. And we're pretty disappointed in like, you know, the very niches we could actually deploy our strategies on. So very trader centric, but the more that we spoke to people around the world, like for example, our first week in Codebase, we spoke to this team in this co-working spot that we were in, right? And they were like, you know, I can't trade on prediction markets because I'm not a U.S. citizen. And eventually we learned that Web2 is pretty constricted, and I guess that's why we're here as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, it's just been such a journey, and it's been so nice to be, on that journey with these guys.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into the topic of prediction markets and everything that's right and wrong with it today. But Michael, what about you?
Well, first of all, I didn't realize this was a podcast about the peril and promise of unsupervised internet as teenagers. Lessons learned. For myself, I have a pretty unique background when it comes to this space. I actually did my master's in city planning and community organizing, but always have been a technologist. Not a developer, but always understood kind of like, this is happening. It's a tool. We can either do good things or bad things with it. And, I think the promise of blockchain became evident in the early 2010s. And then, as I, continued in my journey on that part of the spectrum of the work world, working in city governments, working with communities in New York and New Orleans, really started to think about like, okay, there's a lot of like friction in the provision of service. There's a lot of friction in the way that policy is made. And, I'm not doing that today necessarily. But I mean, ostensibly Avalanche could, right? Like at the end of the day, it's a tool that you can use for, good or bad. And, I was fortunate enough to be in the position where not only do I have that background, but then I was able to work in venture capital and for the AI X Prize Foundation for a bit and got a bunch of relevant experience. And now I'm fortunate enough to be around founders and be able to get to, propagandize in a little bit.
There we go. I guess on the front of Codebase, why did you decide to create this with Avalanche? It's fairly new.
Yeah.
What has the response been like so far? Kind of tell us the ground level of it all.
Yeah, sure. So just high level about Codebase. It's the official Avalanche incubator. It's a 10-week program that we operate twice a year. Teams receive a grant to participate, and then they, at the end of the program, pitch for, in this second cohort, which we're kicking off now, we'll be pitching for $1 million or 3 prizes within $1 million prize pool. Throughout that period, there's then, I know, sorry guys, they won the first one, and it was a $250 check, which like, hey, listen,
$250.
It's not nothing.
Getting us quite far,
but
we're very lean.
This is why we sent you to Argentina.
Yeah,
Dollar goes a little bit further, but we, in addition to obviously the money, which I would actually say is great, but what we're doing over the course of that program is we've built in twice a week workshops that we're starting to kind of coalesce around as effectively like a post-grad Web3 MBA, if you will. So you've just graduated college, you're maybe an upperclassman, you're an alumni. This is a great place to come and learn not only your MBA, but also to like learn how to build. Mm-hmm. We also then, of course, offer services and concierge service to the rest of the Avalanche team. You need help with BD, you need help with Eng, you need help with product. Like I am the point of contact, and then bring everyone else in. And then we also pull in outside resources as well, such as mentors and advisors from our ecosystem. And then we have this cohort, a storytelling coach who will be with the companies from day one. She's already met with them this week. Her. Yeah.
Shout out to Margot.
She's amazing. She's already met with the companies for this Codebase cohort to do work on their elevator pitch. And then she'll be meeting with them on a weekly basis to kind of grow them in terms of their storytelling. And I think that to me is a big differentiator. And specifically working with her, we've all seen it. Like at this point, you could probably put in, 10 bullet points and you can come out with a YC deck. Mm-hmm. Now, whether that's going to get you into YC is besides the point. Like, you think it might. So how are you actually differentiating when you're making a pitch? Mm-hmm. And her background is actually in theater and the creative arts. So it takes a much more of like story-driven approach and, pathos-driven approach. And at the end of the day, in early stage companies, in my opinion, you don't have much else in your story.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's all to say.
And I just want to add, she really gets down to like the why of what you're doing.
Yes.
That is so important
for people like who are eventually going to be using your products, right? Mm-hmm. Like people don't really care about the technology. They really care what they can do with it.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Or how it impacts them, benefits them, etc. I agree.
But I'll quickly answer the question that you actually asked me. My apologies. The reason that we did this is, we view it as a great way to grow the Avalanche ecosystem, right? Like we've structured it in a way that other incubators and accelerators are structured in terms of, the prizes that we get out our term sheets But we make them as founder friendly as possible. Yeah, we'd love upside. Great. At the end of the day, we're going to win not because the $5 billion company exited and we got, X percent of return on that, but that $5 billion company exited and built it on Avalanche,
right,
and built it on an L1. That's how we as an organization win. And we believe that this tech stack that our team has built is really excellent for early stage builders or builders in general. But like my focus is really early stage. Mm-hmm. And I am just one of the other levers that we're pulling in terms of like basically bringing in folks to support them as they build.
Yeah, for sure.
Tech is improving.
Yeah. It is improving.
And for you guys, you were on the blockchain club at your university. So obviously you were exposed to a bunch of different blockchains. Why Avalanche and why now?
That's a great question. I think we've seen this thing over the last few years where blockchain infrastructure has started to reach this sort of like hypergrowth phase. Just 2 years ago, if you wanted to build something out, you'd be missing 10 different toolings. It would be very, very like crypto native, and there was a lot of friction to getting new people onboarded, especially if they had no idea what crypto was, right? And essentially like Avalanche for us, there's obviously all of the fees on the C chain are cheaper than mainnet, et cetera. But everyone knows that. Everyone has that, right? I think the big thing is the L1s, especially with like Hyper SDK and stuff, give you this high level of customizability with, at the low level with the virtual machine that's really, really significant.
Yeah. I mean, going off of that, like what L1s are offering right now, I don't think that any other chain is offering, and really having that idea of multiple networks connected together is so powerful and so different from what everybody else is doing. And it's just letting us build this new experience that couldn't be done anywhere else.
Yeah, and just that new experience, right? It all comes back to who we care about, which is the end user.
Yeah.
So making, their transactions much faster, being able to create their markets, everything is centered around making the experience so much better for them. And Avalanche is really the chain where you can do that.
All right. Well, that's the pitch for Avalanche.
We didn't prepare them for that.
No, of course not. Of course not. But maybe compared to previous cycles, because I know you guys have been in this space for a little bit of time now, maybe longer, or 2012, back when we were kids.
12-year-old trader.
Right? But how do you compare building right now compared to previous cycles that you've worked in?
Oh my God. This is such an interesting question because it's like, I remember when I was like from 8th grade to 9th grade summer was when I really, really got into it. Right. And I remember going on Binance before it wasn't banned in the US. Right. Oh. And all you could do was trade these absolute low cap shitters are like meme coins, like really low cap, just random spam tokens. And they would just go up like a couple 100% a day for absolutely no reason. Right. And that was literally all you could do. You could only trade cryptocurrencies, and it was very much like a Fugazi. Like it was just pumps and dumps everywhere, right? But then when I really started getting into building, things towards the latter half of my high school, right? A lot of the stuff you would see again was very crypto native, very crypto centric, a lot of stuff around gambling, and very, very difficult to use. I remember like the first NFT bull run we had, like I remember me and my friends being on Discord calls, all day, going to these Discord group chats, talking to moderators. It was very unfiltered. It was very it was built around communities, and the products weren't products. They were just people PvPing against each other. There wasn't really there were some smart teams, definitely working on cool things in the space, but ultimately it was very difficult to build something because, there wasn't that infrastructure set in place at all.
Oh, definitely. I mean, going off of that, what I did before this is I've always been very interested in decentralized tech, but in 2020, 21, I was looking into should I build what I want to build on blockchain or should I build it somewhere else? And just with how smart contracts were and just how not amazing the documentation or the infrastructure was back then, I actually ended up not choosing blockchain for one of my first major decentralized social media projects.
Why not?
It was just very hard to build with. It was inefficient and it was very expensive at the time. Yeah. It was early. It was too early. I ended up going with ActivityPub and it was great for that project. But now going back to it, however many years later, it has evolved so much. And right now it's actually unlocked way more potential than I thought it would ever have.
Yeah. Just the way I see it, right? I keep articulating it in this way, which is, 2021 and the previous cycles were really like the 90s internet hype cycle. where we had this huge up and we crashed all the way down with all of the catalyst events that coincidentally happened all together. But now, like, every time we speak to a builder, it feels so much more different, right? They're really looking into what utility can the technology do? What can it do for people at the end of the day? And that's the way that we think about it. And I think that's a lot of, that's the predominant like mind share right now. No longer more, sadly or happily, probably happily, no more Ponzi's, just get something to the user.
Well, there will always be Ponzi. We'll shake them out, but
they're in Web2 too.
Yeah.
Exactly. Michael, from your perspective, you mentioned you were at a VC before and now you're the director of Codebase. How do you kind of look at early stage projects and then this most recent cohort compared to the new one?
Yeah. I'm not an investor. I am a founder, supporter, and mentor. It just so happens that I work for an organization that dispenses money and I'm the head of that organization. So like I say that as the nuance, which is like when I'm thinking about projects at this stage, I mean, we're talking very early stage here, right? Like you might still be in college. One of our new projects is still they're juniors in college, maybe sophomores. Anyways, all this is to say.
That's wild. I wasn't doing that when I was a sophomore.
That is certainly not what I was doing. No. And it's about the founder at the early stage, right? And it's like, and this gets back to I'm not an investor. I'm more of like a coach and mentor and whatnot. And, I think about like, is this person passionate? Is this person malleable in terms of like their own beliefs and their own convictions in the sense of, strong opinions lightly held, right? Like, do something, do it well. If it doesn't work, pivot and do something else. And like, that's a hard thing to teach. So am I thinking about traction? No. Like, what does that even mean at this stage? Right. Thinking about like market or rather like general applicability. Yes, for sure. And I'm in a very fortunate position, which is where, because Codebase is not focused on IRR and, overall returns to LPs, but rather ecosystem growth, we get to be a little bit more like moonshot perspective. So it's about growing the ecosystem. Now that might not necessarily equal, dollars, TVL and whatever. But it might mean that this project becomes, say, like an avatar in sub-Saharan Africa. That'd be cool. That is a different metric. So thinking about these early stage companies from the Web2 world, for sure, I was at like a traditional now, I suppose, VC. And, a lot of that was certainly early stage, but there's always like okay, what's the traction? What's the return?
Right.
You hear it, you read it, it's all on Twitter. Yeah. This is a little bit more expansive, a little bit more soft, right? It's all about, I wouldn't say people's skills per se, but the ability to get a sense of who someone is.
Yeah.
And that's the big difference. The projects themselves, I'd say like the first cohort, we had 15 companies participating. It was our first one. So we're like, we can do that.
That's a lot.
Turns out we can't. Not yet, with a staff of one full-time being me. Obviously the rest of my team was phenomenal and frankly picked up a ton of slack, but they have other full-time day jobs, like our head of DeFi and our head of institutional. Like they can't be on a weekly call with, a startup in Nigeria.
15 teams complaining to you at once is a bit much. Huh?
That's one Telegram group for the complaints. The idea there was we had 15. We're like, okay, we can try this and decentralize it internally. Turns out we wanted to bring it back and make it smaller and make it more boutique. And, the way that I think about it is, Codebase is really delivering a luxury brand experience, right? Like you have your Old Navys, you have your Levi's, you have your Banana Republics. Great.
What jean brand are you?
What?
What jean brand are you?
Not Jean Brown, we're Neiman Marcus.
Oh, okay. All right. I like that. Okay. Michael, you brought up the idea of pivoting. And I feel like that's something that a lot of founders don't even want to think about when they start their project. And as my previous career as a reporter, I would write about these like early stage seed funding rounds or something or pre-seed rounds. And then I'd run into the founder a year or two later and they'd laugh and they'd be like, oh, I remember when you covered us, but we aren't even doing that anymore. Yeah. And then they'll tell me their new thing and that thing's doing like 10 times better.
Yep.
How do you kind of handle that conversation with early stage founders? And then for Inertia, was there any points for you guys where you were like, okay, maybe we need to pivot, or you did pivot?
I would say just high level for me, it's never a dictum, right? It's like you need to pivot. It's more of like, why isn't this working?
Right.
Like
right.
Something's clearly not working.
Yeah.
Where are the levers that we can pull that need to be changed in relation to the market opportunity, right? So that might mean it's not usually like I'm building, let's say Airbnb, and now I'm going to go, build Uber. That's a different thing. Still a platform, sure, but like at the end of the day, very different. It should be really like, what is, to my opinion, is like, who's your customer and what's your relationship to them and how fast can you get to them? And if you're having a hard time getting to the customer that you believe you have, is there someone that you're just not paying attention to that might be closer, that might be easier for you to just immediately access and talk to? At which point then you learn yourself whether or not you need to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Speaking to that, speed factor, right? I wouldn't say that we really had to pivot. I think the hypotheses that we had set out to prove have been proving themselves to be right. However, the thing that, we had to change about ourselves is the speed at which we get there. Yeah. And that means like scaling back, this huge idea in our head, and just, building step by step, getting there and getting to our closed beta, which, we think has promising data that so far, and we can't wait to build more.
I think as passionate founders, you have like this big, again, moonshot dream, this big goal you want to do, but it's like, you have to do the baby steps first, which are really fucking boring sometimes.
Honestly, the hardest part of doing anything where you have a big dream is trimming it down to be realistic. And it's something I've had to learn like as a builder, as a founder. And it's like disappointing sometimes because you want to have this great big dream and you want it to be realized all at once. But then you have to like sit down, talk with your founders, think about it yourself and go, what can we do right now that'll let us get to that dream in the future?
Especially Kainoa is like a very opinionated dev that you are. It's like we sometimes clash heads and we're just like we can't do it this way because we need to do this first because this is more important. It's like, why can't we do this hyper optimization thing right now? It's like, well, if we hyper optimize
the landscape is
exactly
right.
And also like, why can't we have this humongous feature right now?
For sure. How far on like 0 to 100% percentage scale would you say you are into that dream?
Oh my goodness. It's got to be 1%. We're just getting started.
Yeah. At the start line,
exactly.
We finally made it to the start line.
Exactly. And the thing is, with that question though, is there even an end percent? Because I feel like we could always constantly iterate on what we're doing. There's always new features we could add.
We could go to 110%.
We could go to 110%. Like it really comes down to like listening to what our users want, what they want to see in the future and how we can build around that. Because we see Inertia being around for a very, very long time. And we want to make sure that we constantly stay in touch with our users and their needs.
The interesting thing is like, this idea that we had very, very, very early has gotten so much bigger. There are things that we've noticed, like, Web3 truly enables a new user experience. Mm-hmm. So before you could comment, share, and post, and that's all well and good in Twitter and Facebook and so forth. But, for us, we have recognized that you can actually share your conviction on your opinions through our prediction markets.
You can challenge other people's opinions. I think there's so many cool,
how much more credibility do you have when you're putting $10,000 down on the line that this is going to be the price of the token versus, hey guys, the price is going to go up on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. But to answer your question really quickly, I know we went a little off track there. There isn't a major big pivot that we did, right? We didn't go into this thinking that we're going to build prediction markets and all of a sudden we're now doing Uber on chain, we very much had all these little mini pivots of, okay, we want to go this product direction. Well, actually, JK, we need to do this first versus that. So I think the unglamorized mini pivots that happen pretty much in a weekly basis within the founder's journey are a lot of the times more realistic than what's the bigger pivot that's always talked about.
Mm-hmm. And on that founder's journey in this program, what do you think has been the most helpful thing? Because in the beginning, Michael talked about all the resources you get. And I think more often than not, founders don't realize how much you need every single pocket of that. You think you could do everything and you find out you're not a CFO or you're not the head of your own HR. You know what I mean?
Right.
And all of a sudden you have these resources that help you. But what was the most helpful for you three?
Yeah.
I think as a founder, you put on a lot of hats, right? You are bouncing around some different things, learning things. But I think the reason, and going back to Codebase, and this is why Codebase was so freaking helpful to us, is, we've done hackathons in the past. We've done projects. A lot of these things are 1, 2, 3 day things, and they kind of just stop there. And then we have all these thoughts and directions that we want to go in, but oftentimes we don't have this, guiding hand to really get the narrative set and get that timeline and just get everything in order, essentially. Yeah. So that, making sure everything is very constructive, I guess would be the word, was really helpful in Codebase.
Hackathons are very deceiving, right? You think you're going in one direction, and if you actually extend it to months and months and months, then you start going off the rails a little bit. But for me, I think one of the most useful things is, we were gleaming about her earlier, but Margot, being able to tell our story to people that, could be potential customers, on our platform is so helpful. And being able to just, think about it in those terms, why is this thing useful? Why is 5 megabytes on an iPod really useful versus you have 1,000 songs in this little device. For us,
boring. Otherwise,
what does that mean?
Yeah. Humans love stories. Yeah. Oh, we're building zero knowledge powered P2P swaps.
Don't even get me started.
We're really trying to avoid all those buzzwords. We're just. I don't know. We want to keep thinking about the user, and Margaret really, challenged us to ask why. Why are you building this? Why does it matter to someone?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Michael, you told me in the past that Codebase tries to de-emphasize fundraising support.
Yep.
And obviously you still give money, but what is kind of the motive behind that? And how does that kind of shift the perspective for both you and then the founders who are joining the cohort?
Yeah. So, this was a big learning from the first one, the first cohort, that is, because we had such a spread of teams. We had companies who had already raised, I think maybe let's say $500,000. Okay, so for them, it was okay, well, we just need access to your ecosystem so we can get more traction, so that we can get, better metrics to go to the VCs with. And then they have folks Inertia team that were very, very early in their journey. Ultimately, there's a couple of pieces here. The reason that we de-emphasize fundraising support is if you're an early stage company, money is not going to solve most of your fundamental problems. And in fact, it might exacerbate them. Mm-hmm. And if you don't actually know who your users are, you can find out who your users are amongst 3 of you, and you can do it for really cheap. It doesn't cost $1 million to do that. That being said, yes, you need money at some point. So what we've tried to do is really focus on how can we ensure that you are getting the fundamentals right, and taking much more of a educational coaching approach that is really deep in. So even now with this 5-person cohort or 5-company cohort versus 15, I will be in every weekly meeting with every company. They'll be doing a weekly crit session with each other at the end of the week. They'll have a dedicated mentor who they'll meet with on a weekly basis, or really, really tight support to kind of hold accountability, not in a boss or teacher way, but more of friends go and run clubs, apparently. Right? We're not doing Run Club, don't worry. Kainoa wants to, I know.
There's plenty of other ones out there.
Exactly. We'll find you one. But yeah, for us, it's from that approach from the founder side, that's very important. How can we support? Also from from our team's perspective, there's only so much that we can do to get a VC to write you a check. Mm-hmm. If we're trying to say we're growing the ecosystem and we are doing a good or bad job as a program, setting up metrics that are impossible for us to actually really have any control of delivering on, right? You can lead a horse to water, right?
And you can't force the VCs too.
Certainly not. I mean, because there's so many variables that are outside of our control that companies may be amazing, right? We're selecting, ideally, we believe, founders who are VC backable. That being said, are we in a down cycle? Are you not deploying right now? We don't know all of those things. And even though we can be in touch with VCs on a daily basis, which we are, we can't control for those variables. So we decided to instead really double down on the variables that we could control, which is really making that company as fundamentally sound as possible, so that when they are ready to raise, they can leverage our network. We can make those intros. And then ideally they are then really, really ready.
100%. I want to talk more about prediction markets. In the beginning, Marc really got into it and I stopped him, and then you guys kind of sprinkled some in. But obviously, prediction markets are extremely hot right now, both in crypto and outside of crypto. What do you think will make one Inertia different, and how do you guys plan for that today?
Right. I mean, I think everyone's asking the same questions, right? Which is what's going to happen to prediction markets after the US elections. And, we have said this, during Codebase, and we are saying it now, like it's going to be led by communities. For example, it was our first time playing OTG yesterday at the summit. And, I really wanted to make a bet on Anish, like, where are you really going to place? Like,
first game on, how many kills will I get?
Yeah. And, we have some gamers in our chat, and it's even in our Rocket chat, which is Slacker alternative, right? We have our developers saying like, what is this new Linux feature going to be? There are so many communities out there that are interested in so many things, like things that you personally maybe wouldn't care about, but, people in those communities do.
Yeah. To what Marc's saying, like we see a lot of prediction markets right now are centered around obviously politics because right now, but also like crypto and finance, which like 90% of the other people find really damn boring. Like, I'm not going to go to my friend and be like, hey, you think the Fed's going to drop their rates in the next meeting? Like,
okay, I'm interested in that from a non-crypto perspective. So
I think that's like something the Bloomberg terminal would enjoy.
Right.
It's the Odd Box podcast.
But it's all these little things where all these little communities you have that you really cherish. It's these moments with friends, right? Like all of our friends are completely degenerate. Like we have a Discord group called the Degen Gamblers, and we will literally watch like streamers like, oh, will Kai Cenat bring on another celebrity in the next 3 streams? Or, will Phantom Tax come in and eat the Big Mac? Like Michael's looking at me like, what is this guy saying? Like he has no idea what the words.
This is the meme on Twitter where it's like, you're old when you don't know any of the celebrity names. And it's like,
yeah. But it's niches like that we think that can scale well beyond crypto. It's like internet culture, technology, reality TV is a really, really big one. Like my girlfriend's mom and all of her aunties and stuff every week during different reality TV shows. They did this for like Love is Blind, right? They'll get together and they'll put like $10, $20 each into a pot, and it's like, oh, will Julia get stood up at the altar for Love is Blind or stuff like that?
I want to get in on that one. That's my style.
We have a product for you.
Which is kind of crazy because it's like, well, A, I don't watch reality TV, but also B, like we're slowly like we had this thesis of we think other communities have behaviors that can really be emphasized with prediction markets, and prediction markets actually fit into them. And that's, something that we really will be scaling into as the future goes.
Yeah, exactly. And also like when it comes down to the ease of creation, the ease of use with our prediction markets, another big thing is having crypto be fully on the back end. With a lot of these platforms, it's like you have to be a crypto native. You have to know how to have a wallet and fund it and all that. And that turns a lot of users off, not just like people who are interested in finance, but like a lot of lay people, they see crypto and they get an immediate red flag in their head. With us, it's like we don't have to boast about being crypto that much. We can have it do the magic in the back end because of like this amazing technology, but then just like have it work for users.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess on that point, what makes it so imperative to have blockchain technology running Inertia or prediction markets in general compared to just like, oh, I'm going to go create one the way maybe a traditional like gaming betting site would do?
Mr. I spend hours and hours with CFTC case.
There we go.
I do that. I do read PDFs on PDFs. So essentially, we think that blockchain, and it's a global technology. It allows anyone to permissionlessly, interact with our product. And so it's rather than, we don't want to be evil. It's more so like we can't be evil. And that's the issue right now with the current prediction market space. For example, Kalshi just had a lengthy legal battle with the U.S. government on whether or not they can actually hold U.S. elections on their markets. And even then, they're being delayed by the CFTC just because they were forced to. And then also Polymarket, right? I'm calling out the big names now. I hope I'm not. But, users can't even create their own markets there. And it's an issue because can't moderators really on the platform really know the depth of what people are interested in? And in terms of just like the technical little bit of how they work in the back end, it's like they take order matching off chain. And it's like as a user, it's a trust dependency that I thought in Web3 we really wanted to stray away from. But
we had the whole Robinhood, fiasco a little bit ago with GameStop, AMC, et cetera, right? And that caused a lot of users to lose trust in Robinhood. It's like, these are like certain things that like we physically can't control. Like,
so I guess to just like wrap it up in a way, like how do we use blockchain? We use it on the back end so that we can't be evil, that, allows people to express themselves through prediction markets. It's a new form of opinions. And do it in a way that, everyone in the world can use it.
It allows us to scale and democratize prediction markets as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. Before we wrap things up, one of the last major questions I had for all of you is, what kind of other applications or startups would you like to be seen or made, both in the Avalanche ecosystem, but in general? Like, as you guys are building, and then as you're, reviewing cohorts and different teams and everyone that's coming in as applications, what is something that you're like, I would really love to see this be built?
More meme coins. No, I'm kidding.
Meme coins can come up in 5 seconds.
Sorry, the DJ.
We love
I'm kidding.
I'll start. Given my background, this makes complete sense. Deepen everything, please. Like, I live in a city that is, I live in New Orleans, like I mentioned, and it is disaster peril. And the government isn't effective, as well as the local utilities. And frankly, like, kind of all of the major institutional markets are, like, insurance market is dying in Florida, there, et cetera. DeepIn enables peer-to-peer, community microgrid. DeepIn enables cooperative insurance, right? Like, DeepIn enables helium, right? Like, fascinating case studies for, frankly, in my opinion, a world that is experiencing climate change very presently. And DeepIn is something that I think you start to get but at least like becomes this second layer of support when you need a rapid response. Now I'm talking obviously in a very specific scenario, but the rest of the world will be experiencing specific scenarios a lot more frequently. I think Avalanche specifically is an interesting place to build that because of the L1s, right? A big piece of, and I need to do a little bit more research on it, but I'm going to just hedge and say that, is that I think if we are building DeepIn but also parts of it need to be enabled through regulatory bodies, the basically instantaneous settlement on an L1 is probably the most important thing that we can offer in the sense, as opposed to, like, say, an L2. A government body is never going to sign off on something if you say, yeah, it's transacted, but it'll settle in 7 days. Like, that's never going to work.
I think it's really interesting you say that, because I think the biggest thing for me is like the super customizability, right? Like, if you are building out something that's like for infrastructure, if you're building something super specific, you have these very specific needs. You can't rely on like 10 different SaaS providers to like give you this thing, and like, the larger your infrastructure like stack is, the more points of failure like there are, and having that customizability in creating your own L1, essentially like your own blockchain, right? Yeah. Is I think the biggest thing there. Like, rather than the instant settlement, sure. I think a lot of blockchains are doing that, right?
Sure. But, yeah, I think that's totally right. And so like DeepIn is my big one, and then also we just have in this new cohort we have a decentralized AI company, and they're very early. TBD what happens. Ideally, they do great. We shall see.
I want to meet them.
What's that?
I want to meet them.
Well, tomorrow night. But I think that there's something interesting there around data privacy, data ownership, etc. Again, like, wait, OpenAI owns my data now. Sam Altman owns my data. Like,
for not.
Like, love the people, Yeah. So I think, like, when you start to think about it a little bit deeper, and now it's becoming a much more consumer-facing thing, these issues are becoming a lot more salient with people. So I like the idea that we were building back-end tooling that, like, what did you say? Like, doesn't allow you? It's like, you can't be evil.
You cannot be
right?
evil.
It's not you choose not to, because we saw what Google did. Yeah. Right? They dropped
Removed
the mission
it.
entirely.
Yeah.
Now it's like, well, we're actually technically disabled from doing so. Yeah. So that's where I would love to see things go for us in general. The program, yes, of course, but I think the space has a lot of opportunity to really, like, make a difference of, like, actual on the ground in the dirt with non-tech native people.
I am on the same boat as Michael here. And what I'm excited about is stablecoins. We've lived here for about 6 weeks now in Argentina, and obviously we can't say that we're locals, but we have experienced some things about the local currency and having to exchange them. And it really does seem like people are depending more on, crypto to really go about their daily lives.
Backpack full of cash for a few $100s.
It's really scary to bring that around, right? I can't even imagine how different the economic state of the world is in various parts, right? We are very lucky to live in the United States where things are pretty stable. And, I really think that there's a lot of opportunity for growth in developing nations to adopt these kinds of technologies. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for consumer applications like ourselves, to allow people to plug into that with stablecoins.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, coming from the perspective of a builder, because L1s are so early right now, I think something amazing that I would love to see built out is like more actual developer resources for L1s, even like something like a no-code builder for L1s would be huge and enable a lot of non-technical or non-Web3 native teams to get into leveraging L1s for a lot of these projects, which I think would be very cool to see. It's obviously not as exciting as like stable coins and all of that, but I think providing a lot of the stuff for building out these solutions is going to be huge for the real upcoming years of L1s.
Just talk to the team Suzuku from our first cohort.
Oh, yeah. Go through.
They're doing restaking, I think, on L1s, but I feel like that's kind of like product features could be for instance. So anyways.
Yeah, no, I think you guys pretty much covered a lot of what I'm excited about as well. I think RWAs are another really interesting thing, something very tangible. But I mean, you guys pretty much hit the nails on the head. Like stablecoins are huge. I think they are pretty much the first real consumer application that we have. And even talking to people here directly, they don't really know much about blockchain, but what they do know is, oh, hey, we're going to get my paycheck. We're going to go onto Binance and we're going to change it to USDC or USDT. And that way I don't lose my purchasing power as often, because sometimes, inflation here can literally be like several percent a month. And one day you're able to have eggs and the next day you're not. So
yeah. And it's really that simple of just like explaining it like that 100%. Last question, or I guess request from all of you is, can you leave our listeners with a piece of advice?
You guys go first.
All right. Well, I'm literally still in my journey. Like I just turned 22 like 2 days ago. Like
happy birthday.
So, I think I can leave some advice, but I think I'm still very much learning and I'm still very much on my path. But I think if the one thing that there is it's very important to kind of sometimes pull your head out of the weeds and take a step back, because again, like going back to the whole thing of like as founders, you are so ingrained in what your entire mission is, what you want to do. Like you have this big moonshot dream, right? But like it's very easy to kind of get like lost in the sauce per se and then become really disorganized because you're trying to do like 10 different things at once. Like you have to really take a step back, breathe, think about the most important things that will provide the most value to the current stage that you're in and fixate on those. And I think that's something, I guess, as an early builder, I wish I would have done a little better.
Yeah. I was going to say something very similar about not getting tunnel vision, about like being able to step back, see what you're doing. But then also I think a really big thing that I've learned while doing this is being able to ask for help. Letting yourself go, not having that ego of like, oh, I can do this all myself, but actually like talking to those around you, talking to other founders, even like just talking to community members and going like, hey, I need help with this. I don't know how to do this. Could you help me on this? It's such a huge resource and it doesn't cost you anything. But what you get in return is so huge, because the community of builders, especially in Avalanche, but also just in tech across the world, is so huge that not leveraging that is a really big mistake.
Oh yeah, I think the huge thing is like this space is still so small. You can genuinely DM some of the biggest people and get the attention of them.
Oh yeah.
And on the other side of that, it's like you can literally talk to any founder. Like founders are so helpful. Like I think especially in this space where you can't just easily Google a lot of these things, it's very critical that you like just surround yourself with other cool people building cool shit. And that's like something I really love too.
Oh, exactly. And also if I can give a small bit of tech advice for anybody building.
Go ahead, why not?
Don't get locked into using Solidity I found out about Viper while building out everything, and being able to make smart contracts in a language that isn't Solidity in basically any chain. And it works great on Avalanche. It works great on other chains, has been huge. So it's a little bit of a shill for Viper right now.
New sponsor.
I know. New sponsor.
Well, I think, I think it's really important, and it's kind of back to their point. Like, no one's telling you how to run your company, right? Like, there are no rules in how you do it. There are definitely your ethics and how you run it. But I think, we joke about it, but founder mode, like being able to organize your company in a way that really works for the people in it, and surrounding yourself with the people that inspire you, has been really helpful for us. And being able to plug into the innovation house teams, like Sherry or Notice Team, or, all these teams that run in their own way, we have pulled from and, can learn from, and have just done so much better because they're there. So I guess a piece of advice is just like, make the company work for you guys, or, women and so forth. Like, make it run in a way that moves quick, where you can learn lessons really quickly, fail if you have to. And just learn.
Love that. Michael, wrap it up.
Yeah.
Or say your final words, I should say. Sorry.
First of all, thank you for bringing up founder mode. The fact that it passes for thought leadership is very inspirational.
Of course.
Anyways, my advice is a little bit higher level, I'd say. One is, something that I try and remember personally is like, the only thing that I know is I know nothing. And like, aka stay curious. Right? Like, you don't know the answer. And that's actually amazing. Right? Like, that means you can get to make the answer every day. Eventually you're going to have to decide on something, but that might change, and then you can figure it out from there. So I think that that's like a really fundamental way to approach the world in general, but also like really building a company specifically. I would say the other thing too, and this gets back to a more fundamental piece of building a company, is like, get a therapist. Talk to a therapist, because you need to be like individually healthy, because you're running a marathon.
Michael, you're my therapist.
Yeah.
He's like,
I am not charging enough. I didn't get equity personally. You know that. I think that that's like a really key piece. Especially like young guys, like you guys are like what, early 20, you said you turned 22. Like I didn't talk to a therapist until I was like 35, but you know what? It's fucking great.
Oh my God. Actually, can I say shout out to my therapist?
See?
Thank you. No, literally.
See?
Because it gets
Shout out to
super
your
stressful at
therapist,
times. Like, it's really hard to manage. It's like you get like burnt out, you get overworked, you get stressed. Having somebody to talk to who like actually knows what they're talking about. Because like talking with your friends about stress is great, but talking to somebody who actually does that professionally is so different. It's honestly just amazing.
Yeah.
So Michael's like, stop DMing me, get your own therapist.
I'm honestly surprised, because I ask every podcast guest I have, like, what's your advice at the end? No one has ever said therapy, but I appreciate that you guys.
Listen, you got to start somewhere. If you say that you're a machine building the next $1 billion company, you damn well better have a mechanic, and it shouldn't be in house.
There we go.
That's a nice quote, actually.
Amazing. Right. Well, thank you guys for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you.